If you are a business owner exploring AI phone systems but unsure which platform to choose, this video is for you. I'm going to be breaking down two powerful platforms, Vapi and Retell AI. By the end, you'll know exactly which platform best suits your needs, saving you from the headache of choosing the wrong one and needing to switch later on. I've also released two other videos in which I compared different platforms to see how they performed. But this video will be a much deeper dive into Vapi and Retell. I will compare both platforms by 6 different categories: the user interface, speed, cost, sound, integrations, and testing/analytics. I'll start by giving a general rundown of each platform. Vapi and Retell were both founded in 2023 and are both partners with Y Combinator, which is a fund for early startups. They're both located in San Francisco and have similar goals to building the best AI voice infrastructure. I'll start by reviewing the interfaces for both platforms. So the first thing that you're gonna land on when you sign up for a Vapi account is gonna be this page right here. So this is our assistants page. This is where we create our assistants in Vapi. What you'll notice between this platform and Retell is that creating assistants and pretty much the entire structure is very similar, and there's just a few little areas which are different, which I'm going to go through, but for the most part, they're pretty similar. So if we go ahead and create an assistant here on Vapi, we're going to be prompted to add in some more stuff. Do we want a template, or we can do a blank template? And this is really for each individual assistant. So let's just hit create assistant on a blank assistant. And what we're going to get is this new page pop up. And this is where we control everything to do with the assistant. So this obviously isn't going to be a video on how to actually create these assistants. I've got many other videos on how to do that. This is purely a comparison between the Vapi platform and the Retell platform and some of the key features and differentiating features between both. Once you've gone ahead and created your assistant, you're going to get access to everything you need to actually creating your AI voice agent. And if you scroll down just a little bit here, what we'll get is a first message and a system prompt. So this is where we provide all the instructions to the AI model to learn from, to understand what its role is what its objective is. It's going to use that information to base the entire personality of the AI phone agent from. And that's a pretty standard system across these AI phone platforms. If you have used them before, providing instructions and then having that sent to an AI model. If we go over to the right-hand side on our assistant creation page, what we'll get access to is the AI models and the AI providers. So we can see here, it's set default to OpenAI, and we get access to all these different OpenAI models, and these are ranging from the quickest ones to the smartest ones, all the different things that are related to the OpenAI models. But what we'll also get is access to a bunch more models. We can get access to Google's models, Gemini, we can get access to Anthropic's models with their Claude models. We can get access to all of these different models, even Perplexity as well. We can get access to all of these different providers and use these different providers to get different results. So if we want to have particular large language models that are tailored for particular outcomes that we want, we can do that here on Vapi. So this is going to be one of the key areas that I really want to highlight between Vapi and Retell, is that Retell only has support for OpenAI's models as well as Anthropic's models. Now, to be fair, this isn't really that big of a deal because most of the time on all of our clients, we're using OpenAI's models. Obviously, if there is a really specific edge case where we are going to need a custom large language model, which is very rare, once again, this isn't really a deal breaker. For the most part, I'm not really using any of these other models other than OpenAI and Anthropic anyways. And the reason for this is that simply OpenAI is just the best model provider. At the moment, we get access to really quick models with 4.0 mini, and we get access to really smart and a bit slower models like GPT-4 and GPT-4o. So now jumping into the Retell AI platform, once again, like I said, pretty similar. So we've got access to all of our agents like we did over on Vapi. We can essentially go ahead and click create an agent. We can go to the single prompt agent, start from blank. And what we're going to get is essentially the same sort of structure and interface for building these agents, which is for the most part pretty simple. We provide instructions through a prompt, and then the assistant essentially learns from that and bases its entire personality from, and then it just learns from there. So once we're on this page, what you'll see is this giant box here, which is where we provide those instructions similar to Vapi in the system prompt. And just similar, we've got the welcome message down below, and we've got a few different ways to initiate the welcome message compared to the Vapi dashboard, where we can only put in a first message right here. So it must always say the first message at the start with this interface on Vapi. But on Retell, we can go ahead and actually change that to say that the AI begins with a dynamic beginning message, or the AI begins with your defined begin message, or the AI actually remains silent until the user speaks first. So this is a definite benefit of the retail platform. We can actually have it so that the AI doesn't say anything and it's actually waiting for the person that's called in or received the call to say something first. And this is just a really great way that we can just easily toggle that on. And then we don't need a first message if we didn't want one on the Vapi platform. And to highlight the AI models once again, going over to the model selection in the top left on retail, as you can see here, we've got access to the OpenAI models as well as the Anthropic models. So we don't have the most extensive range in terms of these AI models. Like I said, it really isn't a deal breaker because for all of our clients, we're using the OpenAI models anyway. So unless you have a specific edge case that requires this nuanced model, then Vapi is probably going to be the better choice. The next thing to highlight is where to get access to our knowledge base, our function calls, and all of these settings. And on retail, it's very simple. They've stored everything in the sort of middle of the screen here where we can get access to all of our functions. We can add them there, get access to our knowledge base to add them there as well. And we can change all of these settings in the Vapi platform. Once again, pretty similar. We've got it in a sort of horizontal landscape right here where we can just swap along exactly what we're looking for, change the voice models, change the transcriber, and then we just got to go over to the left-hand side if we want to change the knowledge files right here, and then we can add them directly to the assistant through our settings and then just upload them in the knowledge base. So pretty much we've got most of the same functions on both of these platforms. They're just sort of structured in different areas. Now, another aspect to creating these AI agents is custom large language models. So if we go on the retail platform, going back to our main dashboard, when creating an agent, we can actually select a custom large language model. So if we did want a custom LLM, rather than Anthropic or OpenAI, we can actually use a custom large language model. So if you would like to get the integration of any of the platforms that Vapi does, you can do this on retail. You just need to enter in the custom LLM URL, enter that in there, and you can actually get access to it on the retail platform. So if it is something that you do want, you can still do this on the retail platform. Likewise on Vapi, going down into the provider, you can also go down to custom LLM and once again, add in that LLM URL, and you can also get access to a custom large language model. Now, lastly, for building these AI agents on these platforms, there's actually another way. Rather than doing one single prompt, we can actually use multiple prompts and string them together. And we can actually do this on both platforms. So on retail here, if we go to create an agent, you may have noticed there is also a multi-prompt agent. So if we go ahead and click a multi-prompt agent, we're going to actually get a different set of templates, or we can start from blank as well. And it's actually going to be a much different setup when creating these agents. So if I click on the multi-prompt agent, what we'll see here is actually now a prompt tree that has placed itself at the bottom here. If we go ahead and edit that prompt tree, we're actually going to get access to this sort of no code visual canvas display, which we can actually get access to a multitude of different prompts. So if we click at the top here, this is a template that retail already had. If we click on the top block here, we can actually get access to a prompt that has been put in here. And then we can also go down to the second block where there's now a secondary prompt. And the goal here is to create multiple different assistants that work together to achieve the objective of the call. So in this case, we don't want the introduction to be confused with rescheduling appointments. We don't want them to be confused. We don't want appointments to get rescheduled instead of booked and things like that. And we can solve this issue by having multiple different prompts and string them together like this. Now, this is not specific to retail at all. We can also do this on the Vapi platform, and we can do this by going to the platform section on the left-hand side and going down to the blocks section. Now, Vapi does state that blocks are still in beta, but it's for most part, it's very similar to the retail platform. So if we click on new blocks workflow, give it a quick name, we can see that it is very similar in how we're building and structuring and stringing together multiple different prompts. So as you can see, we've got a start block, which has a prompt at the top here, instruction, greet the caller warmly and ask how you can assist them. So as you can see, there's got an initial prompt there. We can then add the next block if we wish to do so. And then obviously we can continue to add on more blocks by clicking add step, and we're going to get access to a conversation. So either sending a message or collecting information, a tool call. So that's our function calls to different APIs, whether it's make.com, etc., as well as a workflow where if we click a workflow, I believe we can get multiple steps continuing on from here. So we can just pretty much just keep adding these things in and building out these workflows and stringing together multiple prompts. So let me know in the comments below if you do want a video on how to build an assistant using Vapi blocks, or you want to see a video on how to use retail's multi-prompt agents. Now that you have a good understanding of each platform and their user interfaces, I'm going to be jumping right into speed. To test this, I'm going to be using the quickest OpenAI model on the market right now, which is GPT-4o, and I'm also going to be using 11 Labs for the voice model. I'm also going to be doing the comparison using the web version of both platforms to get an accurate comparison between directly with Vapi and directly with retail. Each assistant is going to be using the exact same prompt. So as you can see here on Vapi, this is the prompt that I'm using. testing, and I've also copied the exact same prompt over to an assistant on retail. And if I go over to the voice, you'll see I'm using 11 Labs. And if I go over to retail, you also see that I am also using 11 Labs as well. And just before I jump into the testing, Vapi itself says that its latency for this particular agent is around 900 milliseconds. And for the retail assistant, it says it is at 800 to 950 milliseconds. And once I've completed all of my calls, I'm going to show up on the screen the average delay between both platforms. So to get started, I'm going to be using the Vapi platform.
Hi, this is Kate from Vapi Health. Is this Cindy?
Yeah, it is.
Great. I wanted to let you know that your annual body check is coming up on Friday, April 4th, 2024 at 10 a.m. PDT. Are you available for that appointment?
Not exactly. I might have to do a different time.
No problem at all. You can easily reschedule online at your convenience. Just head over to our website and find a time that works for you. Is there anything specific you'd like to discuss or any questions you have before your appointment?
No, I just wanted to know what your name was.
I'm Kate from the appointment department. If you think of anything else or have questions later, feel free to reach out. Have a great day.
Can you tell me a little bit more about what you do?
I help with scheduling appointments and ensuring you have all the information you need for your visits. I can also guide you on any preparations you might need. If you have specific questions about your health, though, it's best to ask your doctor. Do you have any other questions for me?
And now we're going to jump into the speed test for retail.
Hi there, this is Kate from the appointment department at Retail Health. Am I speaking with Cindy?
Yeah, that's correct.
Great. I'm calling to remind you that you have your annual body check coming up on Friday, April 4th, 2024 at 10 a.m. PDT. Are you available for that?
Yeah, I should be available.
Perfect. Is there anything specific that the doctor should know before your annual checkup?
Actually, I'm not available at that time.
No problem. You can easily reschedule your appointment online. If you need help with that, just let me know.
What was your name again?
I'm Kate from the appointment department at Retail Health. If you have any
What was your name again?
I'm Kate from the appointment department at Retail Health. How can I assist you further?
I just want to know what type of services your business has.
I don't have the details on our services, but I recommend checking our website or full list. If you have any other questions, feel free to ask.
Can you book in an appointment for tomorrow at 2 p.m.?
I can't book appointments directly, but you can easily do that online. If you need help navigating,
What was the website URL?
I don't have the URL handy, but you can find it by searching for Retail Health online. If you have any other questions, feel free to ask.
So there you have it. I'll put up the results on the screen now of the latency between Vapi and the latency between retail and the answers and responses that I was receiving. Definitely let me know in the comments below which one you thought was the quickest and which one you thought was the most natural. So now that you have a good understanding of how quick both of these platforms are, I'm going to jump into the realism and the sound quality of both of these. So you may have already gotten a bit of a glimpse as to how each of them sound through that quick test with the speed, but now I'm going to dive much deeper into all the different options in terms of sound quality. So to get started, I will point out that Vapi does have a lot more options in terms of the voice providers. Similar to the AI models, Vapi just has a lot more support for different AI voice models. In this case, we've got access to Cartesia, 11 Labs, PlayHT, DeepGram, OpenAI, and Azure are multiple different platforms that we can get access to. And this allows us to go through a range of different voices. But for the most part, I am going to be using 11 Labs and have been using 11 Labs in these tests and a lot of my previous other videos, as I have found it to be the most realistic sounding voice provider on the market, and this is going to be best for our test. Jumping over to retail now, if we go over to the top left, we can get access to all of the different voice models on retail. And what you'll see is that we've got access to 3 different voice providers. So we've got 11 Labs, DeepGram, and OpenAI. So obviously not as extensive as Vapi, but like I said, I'm only really going to be using 11 Labs anyway and for our clients. So it's really not a big deal breaker unless there was a specific voice on one of these other providers that you did like to use. Another downside is that 11 Labs can be a bit expensive. So if we go over to Vapi, we'll see that something like Azure is quite a cheap model compared to something like 11 Labs. As you can see here, the price increasing. So this is something that we won't be able to get access to when we're using a platform like retail. But obviously this depends on your use case. And for the most part, 11 Labs is going to be the most realistic. And that's going to play a pretty big role when it's an AI voice agent. In regards to actually updating and changing these models in the settings functions, I have found Vapi to be quite extensive in actually changing all of the different values and areas in the voices than Retell. So if we go over to our voice configuration settings here on Vapi, if we select something like 11 labs and scroll down a bit, we get quite a few different options to actually change this voice and actually modify it to do different things depending on the use case. So in this case, what you'll see is background sounds. We can enable an office background sound if we wanted to. Jumping quickly into Retell, they actually have a much more extensive set of background sounds. If we go to the speech settings, we can see here background sound. We can actually select from a coffee shop, convention hall, outdoors, mountain outdoors, static noises, or a call center. So this is quite a lot more extensive than obviously just the office background sound on Vapi. So hopefully both of these platforms in the future release a custom audio file so we can add in custom sounds in the background. But for now, if background sounds is a big thing for your use case, then Retell will be the platform to choose because we can actually go ahead and use all of these. And another aspect is that we can actually change the background sound volume on Retell by dragging the slider from low to high. Whereas on Vapi, we don't actually get that access, which is unfortunate. But obviously you just need to play around with it and see if it's a good sound or not. Now below the background sound on Vapi, we get access to punctuation boundaries. Now this is a really useful feature on Vapi, which we can actually have specific punctuation elements sent through to our large language model and not have them cut out or get lost when we actually hear the audio. So if we want the particular assistant to say a question like you would regularly say a question with a question mark at the end, you would want to have that come through with the voice. You don't want to ask a question in completely dead monotone sound. You want to actually have that sort of questioning at the end. And we can do that by enabling our question mark, our exclamation marks all through here, which is something that we can't get access to on Vapi, unfortunately. Although from testing that I have done previously, I do believe that this is potentially being done in the back end and isn't something that we can just control on the front end, because I do believe we do get access to those different types of pronunciations, although we just don't have access to that here. But what we do have access to on Retell is the pronunciation of either words, named, or phrases in specific ways, which we don't actually get access to on Vapi, which is just another benefit for the Retell platform. Pronunciation, we can add in words to be pronounced different ways. So this might be super helpful if you've got very rare words that aren't being or hasn't been trained on very well. If you've got particular brand names that you want it to say, company names that it's struggling to say, you can fix that completely with the pronunciation settings. So I've now gone ahead and actually updated the settings for the voice on both Vapi and Retell to add in an office background sound. I've also tweaked some of the voice settings that they provided to make it sound a bit better that they provided for 11 labs. I've also changed the 11 labs voice on both of them just to give you an understanding of how each of them sound with different voices to give you the full experience.
Hi, this is Kate from Vapi and Retell. Is this Cindy?
Yeah, it is.
Great. I see you have an annual body check coming up on Friday, April 4th, 2024 at 10 a.m. EDT. Are you available for that appointment?
I'm not actually available for that at all.
No problem. You can easily reschedule your appointment online. If you need any help with that, just let me know.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. If you have any questions or need assistance later, feel free to reach out. Have a great day.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you fixed people's broken arms.
I can't provide medical advice for services like that. It's best to consult a healthcare professional for specific medical concerns.
Okay, can you book in an appointment for tomorrow at 2 p.m.?
I can book that for you directly. You need to reschedule online for the best options. If you need any help with that process, let me know.
Okay, can you tell me what your name was again?
Of course, I'm Kate from Vapi Health. If you have any other questions, feel free to ask.
Okay, no worries. Well, thank you, Kate.
You're welcome. If you need anything else, just reach out. Have a wonderful day.
And now jumping right into the sound of Retell.
Hi there. This is Kate from the appointment department at Retell Health. Am I speaking with Cindy?
Yeah, that's right.
Great. I'm calling to remind you that you have your annual body check coming up on Friday, April 4th, 2024 at 10 a.m. PDT.
Okay, I'm not available at that time. Can we do the next day?
No problem. You can reschedule your appointment online. Just visit our website to find a time that works.
What's the website URL?
I don't have the exact URL, but you can usually find it by searching for Retell Health.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. If you have any other questions, feel free to ask. Have a great day.
Can you tell me a little bit more about what you actually do? What's this appointment for?
I can't provide specific details about the appointment, but generally it's for a routine checkup to monitor your overall health. If you have any specific concerns, it's best to discuss those with your doctor.
Okay, well, I did actually break my arm. Is that a concern?
I'm sorry to hear about your arm. It would be good for the doctor to know about that. How long ago did you break it, and are you experiencing any ongoing pain or issues?
It was actually yesterday, and I'm in a lot of pain actually.
I'm really sorry to hear that. Since it's so recent and you're in a lot of pain, I recommend reaching out to your doctor as soon as possible. They can provide the best guidance for your situation. Please remember to give us a call back if there are any changes in your health condition.
So there you have it, a direct comparison between Vapi and Retell in terms of the sound quality of these systems. From testing it just now, I do think that Retell did have a bit of the upper edge over Vapi, although they are obviously very similar because they are both using 11 labs. The sound is going to be pretty similar, although I do think the Retell may have a little bit of a better default settings for the most part. Maybe I can increase the accuracy or the quality of the sound by tinkering with these settings on Vapi and tinkering with the settings on Retell more. But for the most part, the default settings that this came with and the default settings that Vapi came with, this is how they sounded. So now that you've got an understanding of the sound quality between Vapi and Retell, I'm going to now jump into the cost of each of these platforms and how much it's going to set you back when actually running these agents. So to start it off, just to give you a direct comparison between both of the agents that we just ran, which are exact in terms of their specifications, both agents are using GPT-4o Mini, which is the cheapest model provided by OpenAI. Coming in on Vapi is 11 cents a minute. So this is also the web interaction. So if we go over and swap it over to Twilio, it's going to be an extra cent on there. So it's now 12 cents a minute on the Vapi platform if we're going to be sending these direct calls out or receiving these calls in. Jumping over to Retell, the exact same settings on Retell is going to be around 7 cents a minute, or pretty much rounded up to 8 cents a minute. And this is the web function. So then we got to add on Twilio as well, which it doesn't showcase on the dashboard here. But like Vapi, it's going to be an extra 1 cent. So let's say this is now up to 9 cents. So we've got 9 cents on Retell and we've got 12 cents over on Vapi. And the main reason for the difference in cost here is that Vapi charges a fixed 5 cent cost for their services here, whereas Retell doesn't actually add any fixed costs to the cost of the agents. So we don't have that 5 cent fixed cost that Vapi did on the Retell platform. And then obviously if we do want to upgrade the models, if we go over to GPT-4o, it is going to be slightly more expensive. So we can see now it is up to 12 cents a minute on Retell. And if we go to Vapi and increase this to GPT-4o, it's now at 13 cents a minute. So one thing to note is that this is 13 cents a minute. Retell is now 12 cents a minute. So now there's only a 1 cent difference between the cost. So clearly on Vapi, the 4o mini model is quite a bit more expensive than the 4o model on Retell. So you can get access to this 4o model for 0.006 cents a minute. If we go over to Vapi, that 4o model, just by highlighting the model here, is going to be at 1 cent. So it is definitely cheaper to use the 4o mini model on Retell. And that's where some of that cost saving is also being added in. But then when we go ahead and add the 4o model to Vapi, it's only going to be 2 cents to get the 4o model. But if we go to Retell, it's going to now be 5 cents a minute to get the 4o model. So there is a bit of a discrepancy between the different models on either Retell or Vapi. So maybe depending on the model that you're looking to use, the cost is going to be different between both platforms. But for the most part, they are ballpark in the same range. A key thing to know about these prompts is that the more you add to your prompts, the more input tokens that you're using and sending to the AI model, which is going to increase the costs and the output costs of your particular agent. So in the case of Vapi, if we increase our prompt and we continue to add more to it, at the moment it's at 13 cents. Let's say we just copy this entire prompt and paste it a couple more times, one more time, and we just copy paste it in a few more times. What we're going to see is this cost is now at 19 cents a minute. So the more we add to our prompt, the more input tokens we're using and the higher cost associated with our assistant is going to be. So that's now 19 cents per minute. If we go over to Retell AI, where now our base cost is 12 cents, and we do the exact same thing, what we're going to notice is that the cost actually doesn't increase at all. So if we go and add this in as many times as we just did, so we'll add it in second time, a third time, fourth time, we'll even add it in a fifth time. We go all the way to the top here. You're going to notice that this is still 12 cents a minute. It hasn't increased to 19 cents. It's still at 12 cents a minute. So this is really key if you're going to be looking at building really large prompts for your assistants, because this is going to increase the cost substantially. If you're looking to build a more advanced and sophisticated agent, building it on Retell could actually be a lot cheaper depending on how many tokens you're going to use. So Retell, I believe, is in the back end actually taking the costs, and it's obviously bundling all these costs and being able to get cheaper prices with OpenAI, and therefore they're able to, I would suppose, subsidize the people that are using less input tokens and those who are using more input tokens, to get a cheaper price, although I'm not exactly sure how they're able to do this. But for the most part, we are able to get a much cheaper price on Retell for now. Now that you've got an understanding of the cost of Vapi and the cost of Retell, I'm going to jump into the integrations. So the integrations, connections to calendars, connections to CRM systems, sending out data to different platforms and retrieving information into your voice assistant live. This is everything to do with integrations. So jumping into Vapi, when we want to build an integration or a function, as Vapi calls it, this is something that we do purely through webhooks. So for the most part, what we get access to is something called the tools. And in the tools, we create our functions that send off webhook requests and receive webhook requests all through our tools. So as you can see, I've already created a couple of tools for getting inquiry information and bookings. But if we go ahead and click create new tool, it's going to take us through a bit of a process for actually creating our functions. So if we go over and click on new tool, what we're going to get access to is a couple of different options. So we can actually select a custom tool where we're using our custom backend implementation, or we can actually use make.com or go high level as well. So these aren't necessarily native integrations. These are more assistants to help you set up these connections. If we click on make.com, it's going to just ask us to provide our server URL webhook, and we just place that in here. So it just helps us understand exactly what we're looking for if we aren't familiar with Make and how they set up the webhooks. But for the most part, it's just entering in our webhook URL. And then the exact same thing for Go High Level. If we click on Go High Level, it just wants us to put in our webhook URL for Go High Level. So it's not a very advanced integration. It's purely just letting you know that this is something you can do by getting one of these URLs, and that Make and Go High Level are platforms that can be easily connected. And then to actually call these functions during our voice assistants, this is something we have to prompt into our voice assistant. So we would need to say, if somebody wants to do X, then run this function, and we would type that directly into our instructions. And this assistant will have access to all of those functions and function names, and it will know exactly when that function is being requested, and it will run that function. If you've assigned a webhook response to that function, all of that data is going to be coming through into the assistant. So now jumping into Retell and their functions, if we go to the top here, we have access to our functions. And what we have is a couple of pre-made functions as well. We do have pre-made functions on Vapi. If we go to our functions tab, predefined functions, enable end call function. So this can actually have the assistant end the call. That's just the assistant that they've built, and we can toggle that on if we would like. They've also got a dial keypad where the assistant can dial digits on the keypad. You can read more by just going through these tabs and turning them on and playing around with them. They've also got a forwarding phone number, so we can forward the phone number using their predefined function. So we essentially just say forward the call when somebody requests to have the call forwarded, and then it will just automatically send it to this number. So that is a really convenient one, and one that we use a lot within our agency. We've also got an end call phrase. Once again, this is a really useful thing as well. By just typing in a phrase that we want the assistant to say before it ends the call, maybe it just says, have a great day. And as soon as that is said, it gets triggered, it gets ran through our function, and then ends the call for us. And now coming over to Retell for the functions, if you go to the top of the middle page right here, you'll see that they've also got a set of functions similar to the Vapi predefined functions, transfer call and end call. So once again, we can just refer to these within our instructions. If we want the call to be transferred, we can do so by clicking on that and having it transferred to a particular number. And we can do cold transfers, warm transfers. We can have different numbers or the Retell number. Whatever you like, there's a lot of different options here. And we can also do the same thing with the end call by just having the end call function ran with whenever we want in the prompt. And now for adding our own custom functions, we can obviously do this by clicking add, and we can just go through here, clicking on custom function, and we can do exactly what we're doing with the make requests and the go high level requests by just adding in the webhook URL here. And we can send off any bit of data that we would like, or we can just have the data from the assistant sent over to the particular voice assistant. Now, a key integration that you may have noticed that Retell has is the booking into a calendar. So calendar integrations from checking availability and booking in time slots is something that is quite in demand for these types of systems to be able to very seamlessly interact with calendars. Book in and check for availabilities is a very important thing for these voice assistants. And with Retell, they do have a native integration for cal.com. So we can go ahead and just add in a book calendar function, and we can just add in our API keys for cal.com. So it's a very similar booking system to something like Calendly, where we can essentially add in a Google Calendar to this. So this will book onto your Google Calendar, Outlook Calendar. You can do that all through cal.com. And we can just add in API keys and then have it set up. So it's a very simple integration, and it's done completely through Retell. Let me know in the comments below if you would like to see a video getting that set up nice and quickly on cal.com. Otherwise, on the Vapi platform, this is something that we do have to set up ourselves, and we do have to build the automation using something like make.com, Zapier, or even using custom code, we can have that booking function set up. And this is something you can view on my channel. I do have a couple of different calendar integrations and calendar booking videos that I have created on the Vapi platform. But for the most part, if you want to get this set up as quickly and as easy as possible, using this pre-built booking template is probably going to be the easiest thing you can do. Now, another aspect that I wanted to throw into the integration section here as well is the call concurrency limit. So the call concurrency is how many calls that we can run all at once on our agent. So if we want to send a certain amount of calls, we're doing outbound calling, or maybe we're receiving a lot of inbound calls, this is how many calls we can have going on all at once. So if we want to run an outbound campaign and we want to target 1,000 different leads, using the Vapi platform, we can only send 10 calls all at once. So we can have 10 different types of calls going on all at once, and that is the max. But if we go to retail, we can actually get access to 20 at a time. So it's double the call concurrency limit. So we can actually have 20 calls going all at once. And that's just going to make it a bit quicker for running any outbound calls. And it's just a little bit more scalable if we've got a lot of inbound calls coming through. Typically the inbound calls, you're less likely to hit those limits because 10 calls all at once is pretty extensive if you're not a large organization receiving obviously a lot of calls. But for the most part, just something that you should know. Now that you understand the integrations for both of these platforms and what they're capable of, I'm going to be jumping right into the testing and analytics part of these platforms. So if you aren't familiar with building AI voice agents or prompt engineering or just building any AI assistants, really testing these assistants and making sure that they're actually outputting exactly what you want them to output is a very difficult thing. Being able to get consistent and accurate and reliable results is something that we actually need to really test for, and we need to update our prompts over and over and over again through very extensive testing. And so by having a platform with the most extensive testing features, allowing us to get the best prompts possible is a really key feature in building really good AI voice agents. So jumping right into the Vapi tab, what we'll get is access to an analysis tab. So the analysis tab is a really good function on Vapi that allows us to actually analyze all of the calls that are going through. So this is a really big part of building these agents, is actually testing them and just seeing what actually happened on these calls. And so this is both when we're building the agent and once the agent is deployed as well. So one of the first things that you'll see on Vapi is a summary. So this summary is essentially a call analysis. It looks at the transcript of the call and it essentially just does whatever it needs to analyze whether or not that call reached the objective that it was meant to. So in the summary is just doing a very basic summary. So it's just, you are an expert note taker. You'll be given a transcript of a call, summarize the call in 2 to 3 sentences if applicable. So for the most part, this is something for you to analyze very quickly whether or not a call did its job. Did it achieve its objective? Did it fail completely? And you can just very quickly see through the call logs on Vapi whether or not the call was good or bad or good or bad. But for the most part, this is not something that we can use to enhance the prompt that much. Jumping down into the second option, we have the success evaluation. And this is where it's a lot more extensive, where we can actually get a bit more out of it. We can understand whether or not it reached our objectives. So you can see here, they've put in this demo prompt here, but you can add in your own prompt as well. You are an expert call evaluator. You'll be given a transcript of the call and the system prompt of the AI participant. Determine if the call was successful based on the objectives from the system prompt. So it's now looking at the call that occurred. It's also looking at the prompt that it was given, that it was meant to do in that assistant. And so now you've got this sort of overarching assistant looking at the call that has just happened, and it's going to say whether or not the objectives and did the AI actually do what it was meant to. And then we can connect this to a success evaluation rubric, depending on all of these different scales right here. And we can actually see whether or not it achieved the objectives exactly like it was meant to. So this is a really great way to scalably look at and get a great understanding as to whether or not your voice assistant is doing what it's meant to and whether or not you've built it properly. And we can do that by essentially just prompting it and then selecting in a rubric. And then below this, lastly, we have some structured data. So if we want to extract some certain elements from our calls, when we get these analyses coming through, we want to pick out a particular thing that was said, we can do that through, obviously, once again, prompting. You will be given a transcript of a call and the system prompt of the AI participant, extract XYZ data. For whatever reason, you want to pinpoint different bits of data to help and aid in your testing process. That can be done using this function. Jumping into the retail platform, we've also got a post-call analysis section as well, where we can go ahead and add in some text. So if we wanted to have a summary of the call, we wanted to get our evaluation done as well. We can also do this on retail, just like we were on Vapi. So we can add in our prompt and we can add in some format of the data that we're looking for. We can name it and we can add it in. So for the selector, this is the same as just pinpointing bits of data that we wanted to. It's same as the extractor on Vapi. We can just pick out bits of data. So if we wanted the type of customer that was calling in, we can get that exact bit of data coming through. We can also use the Boolean. So if we want to get it either yes or no, was the appointment booked, yes or no, we can get that as well. And if we wanted to use a number, like what is the user's age, we can get that through as well. So for the most part, I don't think this is as extensive as Vapi. Vapi allows us to connect the prompt to evaluation rubrics and get some really good data. But for the most part, this is something you can actually just build yourself. You can set up a automation to look at the transcript once the call has been concluded and then just run through this on your own automation if you want to get more sophisticated with it. But for the most part, Retell doesn't have the most extensive testing functions as Vapi does for the most part. Now, adding on to this, Retell actually has a particular function that allows us to test our agents much quicker and much cheaper than Vapi. And this is through just doing it through text. So on Retell right now, we're currently testing the audio of the agent. We can just swap it over to test LLM. And right now we can just message the assistant like a regular chatbot, and we can get access to the outputs of our assistant much quicker. So this is really great for prompt engineering and just adding on to our prompt, because we don't have to call it every time and have a chat with it in person every time. That can get very annoying over time when you're building a lot of these agents, and just using the text right here makes this much easier to do testing. And this is something that we just don't have access to on Vapi. Hopefully they add it in the future, but for the most part, Retell is the way to go if you want to be testing very rapidly. Now, lastly, for testing our AI voice agents, another really key aspect to really increasing the accuracy and reliability of our voice agents is automated testing. So this is actually using AI to call our AI assistant to then run a whole bunch of tests automatically to then give us a summary of all of the best points to increase and build our prompt to be better. And this is doing through completely automated testing. Now, this is something for the most part that you will have to build yourself. You will have to build the automation to send the calls and collect the data and run the analysis using prompts. And we can do this using something like Zapier or Make. But for the most part, it's been something we've had to build ourselves. But as I was exploring the Retell platform, I noticed they actually had a partnership with a company that allows you to run these automated testings, and they'll actually set it up for you. So if we go over to hamming.ai, this is actually a platform that allows us to run all these automated testings on their end. So we can actually go ahead and create a bunch of different test assistants and collect all this data using their platform. And the reason that I'm highlighting them is that I found that they actually have a partnership with Retell. So if we go over to partners on this particular website, we can actually see that they have a partnership with Retell. And so this allows us to get a much more support with this platform. They connect with Retell a bit easier than some of the other platforms. This is a really key thing if you're really looking to extend your voice agent development and get these systems running really accurately. Using a platform like this is actually super helpful. And obviously this partnership with Retell is pretty incredible. And you're going to be able to get a much deeper dive into this platform. But once again, this is not exclusive to Retell. So they do also have an integration with all of the other platforms out there. If I just scroll down, you'll see they have integrations with all the different platforms like Blend, Retell, Voco, Vapi. They have integrations with all of these different platforms, because essentially it just calls the phone number. It doesn't have to be on one particular platform or the other, but for the most part, they just have that Retell integration, which is why I've highlighted that. Although if you would like to use Vapi, you can still go with these guys. There are other people out there that are doing these automated testing as well, but I'm just highlighting that they have a particular partnership with Retell. If you would like to see a comparison video between 7 different AI phone caller platforms, check out this video right here where I did exactly that.